I'm John Travis in Novato, California on the 24th of June, 2020, talking to Jennie Trotter in Atlanta, Georgia. Good morning or afternoon there, Jennie. It's great to see you after a number of years. I still remember first encountering you at the National Wellness Conference. You were this lively imp among some somewhat austere and straight, serious people. And you have remained the delight every time I've seen you there. You're just a well-behaved wild woman.
With an exotic laugh. Yes.
And then even I happened to be in Atlanta for a conference and went to an evening event that wasn't part of the conference and thought, I think Jennie lives here. And you show up. You and Gloria showed up. Remember that? You were like,
yes.
so random in a huge city, we find each other. So we found each other again, and I'm going to dig deeper into who you are and why, where you were born, what your family life was like, siblings, what your parents did, all that stuff. So take it away, Jennie.
Okay, so when you said, who am I?
And why?
So I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. I was home born. My mother had all five of us at home, not because she was so into wellness, because she said she didn't want to hear anybody. She didn't want anybody else to hear her scream if she had to scream. So that's why she had us all at home. So that was the roots of wellness to begin with.
Great roots.
My mother was a Protestant. My dad was Catholic. My mother made a commitment to raise us all, or at least send us to the Catholic school for the first 8 years. And in the house that we lived in a house where my grandparents, they bought the house. They were on the second floor. They moved up to Brooklyn when my dad was 4. Just to give you some background, my dad's family is his grandmother is Asian, and his grandmother and his grandmother's Asian, and her father was, my great grandfather was pure Chinese. He came over to work on the railroad track, and his wife was mulatto, so that's the birth. My grandfather's from Augusta, and basically 2 African-American parents that I know of on my father's side. So they came up and they bought the house when he was 4. Didn't learn a lot about the Asian heritage because they were persecuted a lot in Augusta, because he had a black woman marrying half Asian, marrying a Chinaman, and then she married my grandfather. So there was a lot of stuff she didn't want to talk about, but I had her family heirloom book of pictures and stuff. So that's on my father's side. On my mother's side, she moved from Beaufort, South Carolina, which I've just been studying the heritage because I've been creating a family tree for my mother's oldest cousin, who's going to be 98 this weekend. And she wanted to see the family tree based on me getting involved. When I moved down here, I found one of my mother's cousin who was just an eccentric and just knew everything. As an older person, she had done yoga, she did meditation. To find somebody when I was in my 50s and she was in her 70s doing all this stuff in Beaufort, South Carolina. So we became really very close. And I traveled a lot back and forth to see cousin Maddie. And she had so much oral history that I started writing things down and developing this family tree, which I've just finished here this week in my form, because I have a niece that's working on it, is on ancestry.com and doing other things. But I started putting together, and at her funeral, I passed it out to the cousins that I met in Beaufort, South Carolina, and people were just amazed about the connection. Now, about my grandparents, this is something that is very unusual, but they need to be noted for. My grandparents had 18 kids out of all the families, right? And with cousin Maddie, she was telling me that we were double cousins because we're cousins on my mother's side, my grandmother's side, and we're cousins on my grandfather's side. So 8 of all the cousins, of all the other aunts and uncles, of all the other sisters, my grandmother and grandfather had the largest number, 18 kids. Now I'll say 9 of them died before they never reached adulthood and stuff based on the illnesses, yellow fever, smallpox, everything that they had, and not access to health care. And 9 of them did survive. So, and then we just recently buried the oldest sibling of my mother, who was 92 in March. So that helped with the really making sure that the family history was told, because cousins in New York, Philadelphia, they didn't even know, because my aunt wanted to be buried in South Carolina, and she was in New York because that's where they migrated to. And to get her down here, they were trying to figure it out. But then they didn't think they had any family down here, because that group of cousins have never been to back. Then they left here to go to New York. They never came back. So I was the intermediary, and as a result, I contacted the cousins in South Carolina, because we weren't traveling then. It was COVID, in March, the end of March. So I got the cousins there to meet up with the body and the undertaker there, and they went to the graveyard. And so we got some pictures, and we got some real closure. That was just a beautiful thing for South Carolina. That's my mother's heritage. So with that, 5 siblings, I'm number 3. And I feel like I'm the peacemaker in between. I've always felt that role.
Classic middle child.
Right. One brother, he's my joy, pride. He passed away about 7 years ago. He was the older brother. He was named after my dad, of course, and he was just all of that. He got into the police force, very young age. Went from the police force to the state trooper. Just accelerated up through the ranks, as the highest that he did, I think, was investigator, and met a lot of folks from upstate New York and from him. But he was my model, because he was, I don't know if you know about, police mentality. They're like, motherfucker all the time, and they get it done. So when he retired from the state troopers, he went into the schools there, and he became the head of their I guess what you would say, the security for the New York, Albany, New York school system. But he was such a soft guy when you got to know after all this rough stuff. He was such a soft guy. So he was the oldest. And we always wanted to be like my brother, because he could get to go anywhere he wanted in New York. But the girls didn't have that opportunity at all. My mother kept us close in to home. So I have a sister that's 2 years older than me. And she, afterwards, she wanted to divorce me because I'm 2 years younger, and nobody likes to hang with the younger siblings and stuff. So, but I got to know some of her crowd later. And then I really moved into creating my own group as I grew up and stuff. Then I have a sister under me, 2 years, and I have a sister that's 6 years, my baby sister. So in growing up for me, it was Catholic elementary school, and it was from 1st grade to 8th. And that was an experience. I'm telling you, that was an experience. With the nuns and Franciscan nuns, and a couple of lay teachers early on, but they weren't that nice, as you would know. I got smacked in the face. I mean, they would do all these things. It was not the best. But I met some of my best friends there. One of my friends became a life changer for me during that time, and part of that had to do with just who she was. In the 6th grade, the school, well, so we're in an Italian neighborhood. We grew up, I should say, that Italian neighborhood, everybody Catholic and stuff on my block originally. My godparents next door, they were my godparents. They were white and Italian. So it was a really great community. And then, African-American around. And then over the years, by the time I graduated, at least by elementary school, the community was changing and stuff, because there was a lot of different things. The Catholic Church on Fulton Street is one to be taken in, because it has a huge steeple, and you can see it from wherever you are. And Fulton Street is one of the main streets in Brooklyn. So and then they had the school and the rectory and all of that stuff. So the important thing about that Catholic experience in terms of learning about discipline and kindness, um, in my 8th grade, well, first of all, during the 6th grade, my mother basically had some alcoholic problems and stuff and whatnot. So she wasn't that much involved in whatever we were doing because she was dealing with her stuff. My dad my mom and dad, my mom was home the whole time. She was a stay-at-home mom, and my dad, he worked for the transportation system in New York, the New York Rapid Transportation System. He was a conductor. He stayed there, and then he also was a welder for the New Jersey Hoboken, whatever steel company that they had there. So he did a lot of work. But to say that was going back to understanding what happened with my mother and my father and stuff. For me, I basically did whatever I had to do in school. I found school very hard. But when I realized something that whatever I can do, I had to do on my own, I just started kind of doing that. And in the 6th grade, a girl came to school who was not part of the original group. So all of my siblings, all 5 of us went through the school. Everybody who went into the school had brothers or sisters older. So it was families. So we knew all the families, not only the older siblings, younger siblings, and all of that. And that is to say that when this one girl came, Ronnie, her name was Zenobia, came and moved in the neighborhood and came in our school as a 6th grader, she was like, who is this? Because all the other families from 1st grade, we all knew one another. But she came in and she happened to take on the role of being the smartest girl in our class, from just coming into the school and being the smartest girl. I don't know where she had moved from, but her role really kind of attracted me to just watching her, because I was like, I would say a C student, C minus, whatever. I was just trying to get through school and get out. But she befriended me, Ronnie. And out of all the people she could have been a friend with, who wanted to be a friend with it, she chose me. And as a result of her wanting to be my friend, I felt like I needed to like shore up. I needed to do better with my credit. I kind of wanted to be like her, because I didn't like, she befriended me. I wanted to like, so I started studying more, and I started like really like looking at what I wanted to do. And as a result, I just started really studying more and doing better with my homework. It was good. So, so to show that in the 7th grade, I think it was the 7th grade, we have a Regents exams, and I'm not sure I think it was the 7th grade. I got 100 on the math Regent exam.
Wow.
And that nobody ever did before and whatnot. And that was just based on, when you look at role models, you don't know these as you're going up, but she became my role model then. Following the story, when my father went to that school too, when he got left back because he was talking too much in the 1st or 2nd grade. That's purely on color and stuff. And he was light skinned. It didn't make a difference. They had left him back because he was talking too much. But so this is the same Catholic school he's sending us to. And just to say, he went on to another Catholic high school, all of that stuff too. But the point I wanted to make, he had never won an award in school. He just basically got through. And in the 8th grade, because I was studying, and I really liked social studies at the time, and a lot of facts. So when it looked like who was going to get an award, I looked at, all the grades I had gotten, and I thought I was going to get an award. But my family, because it's such a family school, and my family wasn't involved as the other families that were paying the boosters, and my parents didn't show up to the meetings and whatnot. And as a result, we weren't the who's who in family, with more affluent, had money and helped with the boosters and volunteered. My mother wasn't doing any of that. But to say that when graduation came, to my surprise and honor, I got the Social Studies Award out of the whole 8th grade class, which was really a high honor for me and my family. And my father was so proud of me. It really was like just kind of like set the path for showing me, you can do what you want to do, even though you may not have a lot of support at home. I wasn't really looking at that. I had set my goal and I had done that. The other thing, my father was really proud of me because I played basketball in the 6th grade. I started, and I was the only one athletic. My father was a track star. So, he was really, my brother did other kind of things, drum and bugle corps and stuff like that, but he didn't do sports. So I came like his favorite in terms of the athletic ability. And then I ran track later on. So that's the kind of relationship we had. From there, Zenobia, who had influenced me, you need to know, this is an important part. 8th grade, we had to take the state regent to get placed at any Catholic high school you wanted to go to. Not that I wanted to go to one, but everybody had to take the regent's exam for coming out the 8th grade, going to high school. So I was never a good test taker and stuff. So as a result, our school at this time, our school was more predominantly African-American. We were maybe like at least 60%. I'm trying to figure out, we had a lot of people in the 1st grade, and then by the time we got up, but we still was more like half and half by the time I graduated. But the point is that when we took the exam, it was like a 3-hour test and all that stuff. We weren't sure what we placed. So when the marks came back in terms of who got in and who didn't and whatnot and stuff, I knew I didn't make it, and several other kids didn't make it too. But this sister, I had a nun, her name was Sister Apollonia. I call her sometimes Sister Apple and stuff, because she knew who I was and stuff, and she knew how hard, she knew I had taken tests and I had done well, but she knew some of my disadvantages as well. She, not only me, but because she was at this Black school and she wanted to support the students, she was concerned about like who didn't make it. Not only she knew the people who didn't make it, who didn't pass the test, but her question to the school board, whatever, was like, well, who got the lowest of the 3 of us who didn't? I think all I remember is the girls, 3 of us that didn't pass. And she said, well, who got the lowest score? She wanted to know that. And when she got the answer, and we had all gathered for her to hear the answer, I had gotten the lowest score. It was, woo. So at that time I was devastated, but not because I knew I really didn't, do well on the test in terms of timing and, all the stuff, and didn't know the answers. But the thing that she did, she said, oh no, these are my girls and you guys are going. She had a commitment for us to go to a Catholic high school because she, what she thought. So she called one of the schools that I applied to and said, listen, this young lady, she said she didn't get the score, but I want to tell you, I'll put my whole reputation on who she is and what she can do. She said, I just wanted to let you know that I believe in her. And if you allow her to come to your school, she would not disappoint you in her grades. She said, I don't know what happened to the test, but I want to tell you, she is not her test. And we heard her say this stuff about me. And, that put me on the line to make sure if I got accepted, which I did, and to go to this next school. This was St. Michael's, and these were Dominic nuns. And the thing of it was, so because she had believed in me so much, I did whatever. And I was on the principal's list every semester, just excelling. Ronnie, my friend Zenobia, she went to another school, another really much more higher academic school and stuff, and she did well there too. But we separated for the first time. And so after the first year of being at the Catholic high school, it was like, do I really want to be here? I had already proved myself and stuff. It's all girls, we're budding adolescents, and we're like, I'm like, how long? And so I was telling my dad and my mom, I really don't want to go here. My dad was saying like, well, you made it in, you're doing so well, And my mother said, she said, this is my choice if that's what I wanted to do and stuff. I said, I really don't want to see myself at the, there was some stuff that indicated some racism to me because I was so nice to everybody. The nuns thought, they had pulled me to the side and said, you would make a perfect nun. I was like, really? like, not that I was even thinking about being a nun, but they said you, and then they pulled out an order. They said, you know, I'd like to give you some pamphlets. You know, I want you to think about it. I had not done anything to make them think I wanted to be a nun. I don't know what that was about, but they gave me the pamphlets and stuff. And when they gave me the pamphlets, now these are Dominican nuns. They wear white outfits and stuff. Franciscans wear brown. The Dominican nuns, they said this is a chapter in Africa. I guess that's where it was. They were all the Black Dominican nuns. And I was offended by, why didn't they tell me about their nuns that were right there in Canarsie? Why did I have to send me because I was Black to in Africa or wherever they wanted me to go? Why wasn't told about just being a nun and the Dominican nun without the face? And I guess maybe they think they were being cultural relevant. I don't know, but I was like, oh no, I got to get out of here. So I had to figure out a reason why not to go to the school. Because I definitely, and my other friend, I had another play cousin that was there. She was dark skinned. Nobody approached her about being a nun. Not that she wasn't a good kid and stuff, but you know, I like, what is this about? So I knew I had to get out of there. So I made up the excuse and to the nuns during the last week and stuff that my parents can't afford this anymore. We really appreciate it, but I'm gonna have to go to a public school now and stuff. So I just made up whatever story, and it was heartbreaking to them because I was their little pride, but we were able to get out. And so I went to Eastern District. I didn't want to go to school in my community because it was like, you kind of knew people in your community, and I didn't really want to go with people I knew. I wanted to go someplace exciting, at least out of my neighborhood. So I went to a school that was about 25 minutes away, 2 train rides. And I had a cousin who went there too. She was older, but I was trying to disassociate herself with me too, just go there. So I went to Eastern District High School, and the first public school I had ever encountered. And then we were going to gym. And in gym, there's more like, about 100 or so kids in this big gym. And you have to and they tell you what it is. It's very different for me because I'm coming from a small parochial, school. So I stopped at this one pole, there was a lot of poles. And I stopped at this one pole and there was another girl there, and I said, hi. And she said, hi back. And we kind of started a conversation. She was coming from a Catholic school too. And this was her first public school experience as well. We was like, really? So we connected and became lifelong friends as well from that point and as well. So I met just by stopping at a pole and stuff. Noreen and I connected, and she's my best friend through life and stuff. So that was really nice. There were some other experiences there. Because I had done so well at the Catholic school, I decided, keep my grades up. But there was a lot to do at the public school and a lot of different activities. So I got involved in the Frederick Douglass Club. I got involved in the boosters for the basketball, and my friends did too and stuff. And there were a lot of, activities and dancing and stuff like that. So I was having a really good time. So by the time I got to my junior year, I wasn't like an A student. I was like a B student. And I was like, that's okay. You still B, you don't have to excel. You already proved yourself. So then I got a note that I had to go see my counselor. I was like, well, what is this about? So I went there, and she said that the group of some teachers and students, they were looking at people to run for the general organization, association, and they had chosen me. I guess there was like one, this is really becoming more, there was a Jewish guy who they had recommended for president. I was Black. Jewish guy, a Jewish girl for secretary, and then another guy for Black guy for something. They wanted me to run. I was like, really? So I told my friends about it. They were like, really? They said, Jenny, you should run. We know you, we'll vote for you and all this stuff. But, I was really trying to be on the edge of not being a goody, but, trying to, hang out and stuff and really be with other people too. But I decided to run. My family was really supportive of me, and my friends helped me. I don't know who helped me write a speech. So we run our, there are 2 different parties. So our party won. And the guy, so I'm coming into my senior year as vice president of the GO, General Association of the Student Body. And so I think his name was Ronnie. Ronnie comes in, he comes in for school for September, and then he's out of school September, October, November. He's out of school for the next 2 months. So then when they tried to contact him, his father said that he was touring with him Europe and he wasn't coming back to school. So then by forfeit, I got to be the president of the school. I was like, what? We were like, my friends, we had to laugh because we had done so much devilish stuff. The principal just didn't remember who I was, which was good. So I got to be the president, and you know, that was that year, and did a lot of great things. The end of that year, trauma, first huge trauma set in. My sister, before that, my sister, who was 20, got married, and it was a very happy wedding and stuff. So I felt I lost my sister, but you know, it was all good. The great guy she was marrying. But a week, I think it's a week or 2 weeks after that, I can't remember. We had such a good time, you know. My father had a heart attack and died, you know. And this was about 3 weeks before graduation, too. So that was the first encounter with, you know, a significant figure in your life and losing him. I had remembered now going back that he had a stroke maybe earlier in my senior year that I didn't even know what it was. He had a stroke. I just remember him being on the floor and my mother doing some stuff and calling the medical people, but I hadn't put it together because he was a smoker. So that was really hard and stuff. Getting and then, you know, just really wanting to go on. But this is what got me in touch with more spiritualism, or because I was still studying, doing some stuff. And one night I was up late, and we always had dogs and cats and stuff. And I went to bed, and I had moved my room in the back. I slept by myself in the back at this time. And I started thinking about my dad, how I missed him. And I wasn't crying out loud. I was just basically thinking of my dad and memories, and the tears just started streaming down my face. Now, we had a dog. The dog started sleeping with my mom in my mom's room after my dad died and stuff. But the door to my room got open while I was not crying. I was just like the hot tears. I was just, and the door opened, and my dog jumped on my bed, not all the way, just with his paws. And he licked my face where I was crying. And then he got down and went back out. I was like, what the hell just happened? I was like trying to figure out, how did he know what was in that dog that made him come in here and lick my face? What happened? I could not figure that out, you know, but it paused me for the longest that something was happening. Another thing happened maybe a month before I graduated. I got a nosebleed because when I would get excited, it was like just really having a senior great time and stuff. When I get excited, I get nosebleed. So I had this nosebleed that was the worst ever, stuff coming out of me. And my mom, you know, she was, this time she started in the church. She had dropped off doing alcohol, and she became a converter to this church that she was in. And as a result of that, she said, she called a friend, and they prayed for me. And now my mother was like an Oral Roberts fan. We'd always have to put our hands on the radio and stuff like that. But she called a friend to help her pray for me to stop my nose bleeding, because it was bleeding so profusely. It was the worst nosebleed I ever had. And after they prayed for me, the nosebleed stopped. And I was so happy that it stopped, because I was supposed to get to school to meet my friends for whatever we were supposed to do. I just kind of like, but when I got on the train, I had to take 2 trains to school. I kind of like, what really happened back there? You know, my nose, my mother's friend, they prayed, and my nose had stopped. So that connected me into that there's something greater going on, you know, out here that you may need attention to and stuff. So those are some of the incidents that I wasn't sure. I wanted to go to Howard. I applied for some schools. I wanted to get out of New York. I wanted to go away. But once my father passed that year, my mother said, nobody's going. There's only 2. My brother had already left. forgot my brother got married early too, and then my sister gone, so I became the oldest, and so my mother said nobody's going, because she was in transition from losing my dad and stuff. So I wasn't sure what I was going to do, but that summer I kind of like did some summer work, and I just prayed. I said, I hope I get in school. I want to get in school. Wasn't even sure where I was going to go. And a week, 2 weeks before college was starting, I got a call that they had developed this SEEK program for people who were low income, which we were now low income, and that for African American, and people who had, completed their high school diploma. It's called a SEEK program. I forget, it stands for something because I've been to some of their reunions and things. But and they would even give you a stipend too to go to school. So I got in this program. It just came about and stuff. So we started at a small community college, which was really good. And then we went to the New York City Community College, and for 2 years. And then the program, if you needed any kind of help, and then it gave you $40 a week, which was really great. So that was good. So I graduated from the 2-year community college, met some friends, met a whole nother group of friends there, and basically was really kind of spreading my wings out. And that's the year that Martin Luther King died, and we went down and we protested. And, it was a big thing. John F. Kennedy died when I was a senior, and then that was terrible then too. Anyhow, going from there to leaving, where am I at? Leaving the school in high school and college. I lost my trend of thought. Sorry. You remember what I
said? Yeah. Did you do any more schooling? Or was that your?
Oh, in high school, I graduated from high school. I went to 2-year, and then we also got. If you did 2-year, you could apply for one of the university schools. The program too. If you still grades were good, you could apply. So I applied to City College of New York to go on up there and complete to get, because first of all, then my sister had done some schooling, but she hadn't graduated. My brother just basically moved into the state troopers and stuff and was doing school there. So nobody really got in a college degree. So I was the first one to get the first 2-year college degree. Then I was going to go on to get my bachelor's and specialize in sociology. So in education. So
and where did you go on to school? I couldn't catch the name.
City College of New York.
Oh, City College. Okay.
College and stuff, one of the whole CUNY university system.
And that's in Manhattan.
Yeah, that's in Harlem.
In Harlem.
And I'm going to tell you that why I say it's in Harlem, because when I got up there, I joined the Onyx Society, more or less learning about what, the Black people were doing there, and, being supportive of anything that we can do that could make us understand some of our culture. And there seemed to be these kids or students who were there earlier, the year before. They were like, not really satisfied with what City College was doing for minorities and stuff. So the meetings started being focused around what the school was not doing, what needs to be done, and hosting some meetings. So they were really getting, ramped up. And then we had H. Rap Brown come and visit our college as well and stuff. And people were all over the place. So it was a movement going on. And so then some of the students there, some of the older students, I would say older, but some of the more just advanced students, they started some rap sessions about what they wanted to do. And they came up with a plan that they said that if people wanted to be involved in really learning about our history and learning about revolution and learning about what people do in terms of system changes, that they had these groups. They came up with a group called a cell. Each of the 10 committee of 10, which were 9 guys and 1 female, they all formed a cell of 10 people to train them to read either Che Guevara, the spook that sat by the door, to read anything that was revolutionary, to study it and have rap sessions. So we did that. And all that was preparing us for, as we got into, I don't know if that was from November, maybe December, to by the time March, we were planning to shut the school down, to take over the school. And that became, our goal, which we did in April. And we shut down the school. We had a great plan. It was like we planned to meet one morning, I believe it's the April the 16th, something, in on about 6 o'clock before the college opened and locked the gates. But that morning when we got up, it was raining cats and dogs. So we still went up there. We hadn't told our parents. We just got dressed and we were supposed to just bring whatever we wanted to bring, everybody's supposed to bring some locks and chains and stuff. So we did do that. And as a result, so it was raining. So we had to go into a vestibule of one of the big apartment complexes that was on 125th Street. So somebody was coming out. So we all went in there, maybe about 80 of us or so. We went in there and we just gathered. We said, okay, we're going to keep the plan as usual, there were several gates on the south side. There's a south side of the campus and there was a north side of the campus. And we decided to take the south side of the campus because it wasn't as huge as the north side, which has more tech classes, and more of the white students hung on the north side anyhow, and the black students hung on the south side. So we took over the school, which became and we named the school Harlem University. And we held the school down for 2 weeks. And then we all went into different gates that we had. And I remember being there as the police came in their whole regalia of, to revolt. All the things that we're seeing now, it's like deja vu, in their riot hats and gears and all the stuff. They came in busloads. And we were so confident. We were so invincible. We were like, off the pig. We didn't care. We really cared for what we write. We developed like 5 different demands. One was for a more representative faculty. One was for an African-American Puerto Rican department. One was for open admissions, that we think everybody should come to school, free. So we developed all of that to have all our rights, and there were some others too. So those are the rights. So the people who were the committee, they were very astute, very intelligent. They joined forces with, the reason why we were not removed from the campus, they joined forces with all of the Harlem delegates, Adam Clayton Powell, Shirley Chisholm, from all the people. They knew these were Black students in Harlem taking over the school, asking for their rights. So as much as the city, the Jewish community may have wanted to get us out of there, they knew if they touched anybody there, that they were in the middle of Harlem and they would see the worst race war ever. So we were really safe in that. So we did that, and I talked with my mom, just told her, and she was like, whatever, and stuff. She was somewhat concerned, but she knew that basically, as an older, I was turning 20 and stuff, that we were doing our thing at that time. So anyhow, I finished that year, and we came back, and that we either got pass or fail for whatever courses that we were taking and stuff. And we rectified. City College did have open admission. They did create an African-American and Puerto Rican department. They did hire more African-American and Puerto Rican faculty and stuff. So I had one more year in, and my goal at the time was, okay, let me do what I got to do to get out of here. We've done that and stuff. And some people, there was a movement for people to go to Cuba. I did apply for that. I'm not sure. I didn't get to go based on whatever these are some of the students' movement. They were like going to different places to look at other revolutionary cultures and stuff. But then I just said, let me get on the head straight and just go ahead and get on out of here, which I did. That next June, I graduated and got my BA degree. And then it was set for what am I going to do then at the time? And a friend of mine who had went to Bank Street College of Education had said to me that Bank Street had some scholarships available for African-American students, and I should apply since I was in education. So I had never heard of Bank Street and what it was. but she said it was in education, and she told me about it was the most leading college or in education, very innovative. And then the more I found out about Bank Street, they were like really, cool, good school. They had done the premier reader, and they had included more people of color in it. So I applied, and I got accepted to Bank Street, and I got a scholarship. And so I went there and moved on. During that year, I had met my husband. He was from Illinois. He was coming up from Washington based on having his friends. This is what it was. In my senior year, I worked in the community. That's what it was. And I had some time and I needed a job. So I worked in this community center called the Ocean Hill Brownsville Community Education Center. And when I went to interview with them, they were telling me about all these different programs. They had housing program, employment programs, and this. And I asked them, I said, well, where's the program for drugs, for drug addiction, for the addicts that we have in our community? Because this time my community had turned all Black and whatnot. I had dated a guy and was almost going to marry a guy who was an addict and stuff. I had a relationship going like that throughout college. And so when I asked them about that, they hadn't even thought about a program, a drug rehabilitation program, or a program for young kids who were experiencing drugs. But this wasn't experiencing, because these people were shooting up. This was heroin and stuff. So they said, you should take the lead for that, because I was asking about that. They hired me as a part-time student. They asked me to take the lead. So because I had a boyfriend who was a heroin addict, I knew about where the programs were. So there were people who were hiring addicts who had graduated from Phoenix House to come in there to me as a staff person on their program to help them develop other programs for teenagers and for young adults who were seeking heroin addiction. So that's what I did. I hired somebody, and he was full-time and I was part-time, and we started different programs there. And then once I graduated, I left there, and I happened to go to Cuba, not to Cuba. I didn't get to go to Cuba. I went to Guyana. I don't know if you know, in Georgetown, Guyana, with one of my professors. She sponsored a trip there during my senior year, which was really great. Today is interesting. Today is her birthday. And she went there as a school teacher, and she met her husband, who was leading the revolt there in Guyana and Georgetown and stuff, also along with Walter Rodney. He was leading revolts there for the poor people there. So met all these folks, and this had a whole glimpse of what another world looked like, underdeveloped world, because Guyana, as beautiful as it was a great experience for me. And then the political piece, because it was a Pan-African conference. And even though I wasn't as political astute to be in the conference, because we were really just absorbing the nature and the people and doing a lot of the visits to the country, my professor was very much involved in that. And as a result, that, it made the affiliation more enriched and made me more wonder, ponder, and search about what's going on a higher level at different places where we're at. So that education, when I went back to the community, I really was more abreast as to what's happening with this community money that we're getting in, and they have all these professionals working, and who is really doing the work. There wasn't a lot of people doing the work. It almost seemed like people were taking money, and very little was going towards the worker bees. So my husband was at that job too, and he said, I was a worker bee. He said, you're the only one in the whole department that was working. You took your job seriously when other people weren't doing as much and stuff. So he said, that's what attracted him to me and stuff. And I wasn't really looking at a relationship in there, because that was my first office experience in the adult world and stuff. I had not been in the real adult world, and it was like different things going on, which I really didn't know about. So I tried to stay away. And plus I was still dealing with my boyfriend, who was an addict, who was trying to get him in a home and out of a place to kick his habit. But all that is to say, we did go on, and after a while working with him, I got involved with Jim, and that became a crisis for me during college. I mean, that was graduate school. What was I going to do? Was I going to stay with this guy who I've been called Florence Nightingale because I was always helpful, and stay with the cycle with this guy here and continue to help him? Or was I going to move on into a new relationship with my husband, Jim? I wasn't, but then Jim saw that I was torn, not sure. So he said, well, listen, I'm out of this relationship. When you get yourself together, you let me know. And then he walked out. And then I was trying to figure out, what are you going to do? You've been with Melvin back and forth. It's been up and down. Are you going to do that? Or are you going to go with this guy who appears to be a lot more healthier, college grad, graduate school, went to Howard and stuff. What are you going to do, Jenny? I was at a crossroad, and he was giving it to me that I had to decide. So I decided to go with Jim, only because I had already been with Melvin a couple of years, even though I had planned on marrying him. And so then I called Jim. I kind of ran and caught up to him and said, it's you and stuff. And these guys were like, oh, she's trying to get you? Boy, she was running real fast. Then when we were coming back through the streets, they were saying, that girl was trying to get you, definitely. So that's where that marriage and relationship started then. So moved out of the house with my mother and lived with Jim and all that stuff. That was a whole nother relationship with my mom, because she didn't like you not married before you move out the house with your boy, all that stuff. So all of that.
You're describing the classic 60s.
Right.
You were right in the thick of it, from the political and the everything. Like, wow, real child of the 60s.
Yeah, and your parents were still with the 40s and stuff.
Yeah.
Whatever, but
I was on the outskirts of that in medical school. I knew something was going on around me, but it took me a few more years to figure out what had happened.
Yeah, a lot of stuff was happening. A lot of stuff was happening.
So you did graduate studies then?
I did graduate from, we did get married. We had a baby when I was in graduate school, and basically I had finished Bank Street and I was finished before, not finished completely, because I had 6 credits left to do when I left New York. We got the opportunity to go to Atlanta when my daughter was just 1. And and that's because the godfather who we met at the community program, he got called a consultant job in Atlanta. He became good friends. He became my husband's mentor. He later became my daughter's godfather. And as a result, he came down. He was a consultant for Atlanta University Center. And he was a Harlemite, strict Harlemite. But he called Jim. He said, you need to come to Atlanta. He said, and he told his wife he wasn't coming back to Harlem because he loved Atlanta so much. He said Atlanta was doing so well for Black people and businesses. He said, you should move down here. So during that year, that the next year, we got burnt out of our house, something and stuff. So we were living with some friends, and then we were living with our family, my sister. And during that time, Roland sent money for Jim to come to Atlanta to look for a job. And within 4 months, he was able to get a job down here. So he brought us down the end of 73, my daughter and myself, and we found an apartment here. So that's how we got to Atlanta. And then there's a whole nother story. But can we pause so I can go to the restroom, because I have to go.
Sure. So you've had this very colorful background, and right in the thick of the whole cultural revolution of the 60s and 70s. And you're in Atlanta now with a whole new world and a 1-year-old daughter. And what
could happen next? What could happen next? I moved into this apartment complex, and Santoy's one, and Jim's working, and I go over to pay the rent, and I come back and somebody took my whole kitchen window out. I'm like, what? So I go back over and I tell them, I said, you'll need to have some better security here, because if this person had gotten in my house, then me and my daughter was there, and that would have been, catastrophe. So then I talked to some other residents of this apartment, and they agreed too. So we started a kind of an informal resident association, and we were asking for the resident management to give us to have some security in the front of the building. It's a huge complex that had over about, I don't know, 3,000 people in it. It was a new complex. Atlanta was just coming up, so it was building a lot of new apartment complex. But we were asking for more security at the beginning and at the end. To have, some people had, they had gates. Some people had a little booth that people checked who was coming in. We were just asking for that. So, and we had a couple of tenant meetings, meeting with the management. Instead of management doing that, they singled who were the leaders, myself, my friend, and another friend of mine, and they singled us and they served us with an eviction notice that we had to get out within, I don't know, whether it's 2 weeks or something, 6 weeks, whatever. And we checked with our lawyer and they said, yeah, you have to get out. You don't have a recourse. So then I had to leave. We were in that apartment complex for 1 year. I had to find another dwelling place. And it was very interesting to where I am at right now because, you know, I kind of prayed to figure out where. And something was telling me to go down this one street all the time while I was looking, because when I got down here, I had to learn how to drive. And something kept telling me to go down this particular street that I'm on. So I didn't know it. And I finally listened. I said, just go down that street and write down whatever house was available. So most of the houses, this house was not, it was for sale, but not for rent. So I didn't know which house I was supposed to find. So I just went down the whole 4 blocks of this area and took down every house and took down the number. So I called this house first, even though it was for sale, asking the guy, would he be interested in renting? And this guy, for this particular house, he said, I would be. It was my mother's house. It's been vacant for a couple of years. He said we could have the furniture that was in it. When he looked, and that's all antique furniture in the living room, in the bedroom, and I loved it. So we moved into this house with the option to buy after a year, which we did. And this is the best house ever. We've been here.
Wow.
Ever since. So that worked out too. And Jim just said to me the other day, I'm so glad you choose this house. We are just really just happy in here and stuff. So we choose this house, which we got great neighbors, got involved in the, so coming from there, it was here that was started with the Missing and Married Children Crisis, and they started block parties, you know, that every block should have a place where a child could come if anything happened. So, you know, I started an association meeting here, and I wanted to know everybody on my block either, because I've never lived on a block in the South and stuff and had an association. So I started the first block association meeting here, and we put our little posters up in our windows and stuff. And from there, there's a block, and then there's a whole neighborhood association. So we became very well known, and Jim served as the president. So that came with the job that after being here, first I worked at the girls club and stuff, and then wanting to do more. I found during the crisis, they had asked if there was a job announcement. They were looking for counselors, because that's what I got my degree in. And I got my master's in that. When I finished that, when I came here after my first year, I had 6 years, 6 credits left to finish my master's. And the question was, do I really want to do this? Who cares about this? And somebody slapped some sense in my head saying, you just 6 credits from finishing your graduate degree? Why wouldn't you? I was like, well, that makes sense too. Just go and get it. So I finished whatever and sent in my thesis, and I got my graduate degree from Bank Street. And then when they were looking for people in the counseling department here for Grady Hospital, had put up that they had a grant, and they were looking for counselors, they're looking for clinicians to work with the children and the families of the missing married children crisis. They was just starting a program. So I applied. They had gotten hundreds of applications and stuff, and I got a call, and they asked if I was willing to come in, and I had to go back for a couple interviews they had gotten, and in total, I had several interviews, but I was picked. There were only 6 people picked. 3 were clinicians who had PhD degrees and things like that. And then 3 were people in education and in counseling to develop programs for the missing and murdered children's crisis. So that was a whole orientation and education itself, because then we learned that the crisis had been going on for several years, where kids had been coming missing and wind up dead. And the whole city had not done anything about it, because there were just Black kids and stuff. And it wasn't until the mothers got together and put a stop to it, and then went to the media and demanded attention to say that there's almost 23, you know, African-American kids, mainly males, but females too, had been abducted and found murdered. So that was the big crisis that came about in the 60s, I mean in the 80s here. And that's the job that I was in at the time for the Central Fulton Mental Health Center and stuff. So that's when I started developing stress, looking at stress based on what had happened. And that's when I found out there was no stress program. The only program I could find was in Wyoming by this one researcher, and she was doing the stress having to do with grade level performance and test taking. And that was the only work that I could really find related to children. So I started developing my own from in teaching stress management, trying to do it. How do you create a curriculum, looking at what we're teaching adults, and then look at what are the things that you would teach children: breathing, muscle relaxation, teach them about diet, teach them about yoga and things like that and stuff. So that's what I developed my curriculum on. And then the same department where we got the money, and this is when I was learning about what systems were doing. Grady they got millions of dollars to develop the program, but then when nobody was watching that, the crisis was turning, down, slowing down, and there was not a lot of emphasis on it. They shift the money to wherever they wanted to shift it, and with nobody looking. That's when I met here a lot of the Black psychologists here, like Dr. Henry Braddock, Jenny Williams, Dr. Naeem Akbar, some other I was like a little young person with their caucusing on different strategies. Then I can see how the community was coming together. They would put forth a lot of strategies as the think tanks of what really needed to be done for the mental health of people. And then basically I became friends with all of them, and that was such a plus. And they became my mentors and, helped me with whatever I needed to be helped with. But that's when, I really felt like I was in the midst of, then I joined the Mental Association here. I worked on the board here, and just got to know. I joined the Children's Council here. Anything having to do with children, I just became more, familiar with, and really learned more about to help developing my program. So I learned a lot of people who was who's who on the ground here, and afterwards became whoever they came, different legislative council people. I was really surprised, even the former mayor, woman mayor, Shirley Franklin, any of them. It was then her children were on the swim team. My path started crossing. So with the stress, we started with that program. Then where we were getting funded for, they put me in gerontology. They said, well, nobody was watching, so we didn't have to do the stress anymore. Even I had done some workshops. I worked at Georgia State. I also worked at Spelman. I started doing some stuff on my own during the summer. And then they said they're going to fold this department. They're going to put me in gerontology. I was like, what? And they could do this and stuff. So I worked up there for 2 months. And I said, I was working also as a counselor for a group home. And I was telling her my frustration with what Grady was doing. And she said, why don't you write a grant? I was like, a grant? What is a grant? She said, this program gets funded by grants and stuff. So she gave me a book about some grants to write. And first I was like, oh my goodness. First of all, I don't like writing. My husband is the writer. I was like, but I had the great idea. So I took the book home and I said, I'm going to write a grant. And he said, okay, great. So I wrote it, and then all the help kind of came in. I think the first grant was for $25,000. It was a 3-year grant, and stuff. And I wrote it to work in one of the school systems that was one of the schools that lived in an impoverished neighborhood, to work with these kids that were directly affected by the missing and murdered children's crisis. And this is how we got it. I mean, it was documented and stuff. My husband, he would proof all of my grants, and we made a case. We collaborated because I knew all the who's who around to say these are the services we would do, and we got the grant. This is how we got the grant, but the school superintendent, who was white, and so I'm writing it for this Black community, the principal there and the teachers there and stuff, and they were like, yeah, write it. But the grants have to be approved by the superintendent, the central board. And when the superintendent, when the Black principal told him I was doing this, the superintendent got upset because I didn't know protocol. I didn't know I had to go through the superintendent. I didn't know I had to get permission from the board. I didn't know anything like that and stuff. So the grant got funded, and the grant is sitting in front of the board, and the superintendent saying that he wasn't going to fund this because I didn't follow protocol. Who was I? Where did this Jennie Trotter come from? What did she has I had no affiliation with working with Fulton County School System, which was the largest school system in Georgia at the time. So he said he was going to vote it down. So somebody told me that. So when I'm not sure who I was strategizing with, they said, contact this. I contact one of the Black members on the board. I told him who I was. I told him what I was doing. And I told him, what my reference was. And he said, send me your copy of grant. I sent it to him. He said, don't worry about it. We got it. He said, I'm going to talk to all the other members on there and tell them you're doing this for our kids. And said, when we vote, we're going to vote him out. We're going to vote. So the superintendent, I was present at the meeting when it came up, the superintendent said and stuff, and they took a vote, and the vote was in my favor. It was like, 6-7, I don't know, whatever number it was, but it outvoted him. And he was like, who are you? But he was out in another 6 months either, and they had voted him out too. So that's how I got into Fulton County School System with the grant to do the first, we called it Project Stress Control. And it got funded. And when we started seeing the correlation between grades and stress, because at the end of the year, we had to do a standardized test to see how the kids' performance was. That's what the grant, because it was a juvenile grant, something they wanted to keep record on the kids. And we saw an increase in the kids' academic performance in math and reading. And we saw a decrease in the suspension rate in the violent acts. So the program's evaluation was looking really good. So it was getting some attention. So somebody said, well, you should get nominated for, the Governor's Award. They look for programs that are doing good. They have the Governor's Award in juvenile delinquency prevention. They had a Governor's Award in mental health education and stuff. So, the board that I had started, the nonprofit, we submitted it. And then within 2 years, we got both of those awards. So we were getting, recognition. And then they said, well, you should apply for state funding and stuff. And so the councilman here, Bob Holmes, who was also from Brooklyn and stuff. So I went and I talked to him and he said, yes. And he'd come down and present and stuff and whatnot. So he put us in a line for state funding. So we got funding for at least like 12, 15 years here. And so the grant that I had started with another nonprofit, because I didn't have a nonprofit at first. I just started one and I went through another nonprofit, the National Negro Women Association. And then I started writing a federal grant for them. And then we got a federal grant. That's the preschool program. That's the program that Gloria and I worked on. I hired Gloria to come in because I didn't know a lot about preschoolers. And we got that funding. We got $500,000 or $250,000 to develop anything that would help working with children, small children, about stress education. So we got to develop puppets, videos, storybooks, coloring books, all the stuff. It was like you can create all your program. So we did that for 2-3 years. That program got not only statewide recognition, it got federal recognition because we were getting it from SAMHSA, which was the Substance Abuse Administration. What was it? SAMHSA, Substance Abuse Administration for Prevention. Because our theory and premise was, if you can teach children early how to deal with stress and continue these skills, they may not have to yield towards drugs or to a substance later on. And if you can work with their parents, the program was always holistic. Even when the first program was working with the parents, working with the teachers, and also working with the children. That was the whole three-prong, and working with the community. That program even had a community coalition, the first program we started. So we just kept that model holistically. And we were doing that wherever we were. And those programs, it continued to excel. So once we moved into doing the whole thing under holistic, all the grants that I wrote, and I would say blessedly, that somebody, and I figured this is my rationale, that the kids from the Missing American Children Crisis, their spirits were blessing me because everything that I wrote, we got. I mean, everything. And I just, thank God for that. So we went from 25 for K for 1 year. Within 3 years, our budget was $1 million from a number of federal grants that we were getting in 3 or 4 years. So it just zoomed. And then the staff from, hiring Gloria to hiring, 20 people, hiring consultants. And then all our programs had a holistic spin in it that we did. And initially, I had a hard time working with dealing with male directors or male anything, because they were like, I'm a Black female. How dare you act like you know more? How dare you try to tell us what to do? I had a hard time with males. It was like, whoa, it wasn't the best. So I had some really internal struggles working with male directors and researchers too at the time. But and I had one guy even take me to court. One guy, I had a whole 10-year in court about one of my he was a co-director. I made him a co-director and stuff because we had the idea together. But he said that because he wasn't getting as much money because I was 60% on the grant, he was 40% on the grant, whatever. He had his own idea, and then he sued me. He said that he sued me because I wasn't doing as much, and he should have gotten whatever. We had agreed on all of this, but I had to go through a whole suit for 10 years with my organization. I had to go through this whole thing, and the ball down the week in court. That was the most trying experience I've ever had, and that they ruled him that he was suing me for forgery for myself personally and for organization. He was suing us both ways. But the judge had showed when the judge heard all the evidence, he ruled in my favor. And he said, listen, and I'm going to ask you, you're going to have to sign something because your information that you will never come back and sue her again in any of the Fulton County courts. He said, otherwise I'm going to charge you this, that, and the other. So the guy had to sign something, and then the same money I wind up paying, he was suing me for the same amount of money that he would have made for the next 2 years was about $10K, was the same amount of money that the court case was costing us. So all of that money that we were going to pay him, we just paid the lawyers for that and stuff. But that was a lifelong experience because he was such a good friend. He was with me with mental health and stuff. But I just saw how people get greedy for money. And as a result of it, they would lose their scruples and stuff. And, and then he told me one time when, because the community found out about it, he said, Jenny, I just want to let you know, this is business. It's nothing personal. How the hell do you sue somebody and it's not personal and stuff? But it was all these people. That's what I tell my granddaughter. These people all come together just to help you be a better person, and no matter what. Because when they told him that he lost the case, I went over to him and I told him I was sorry. And my lawyers, and I had two, she said, why did you do that? I said, because I was sorry for him. She said, you saw the stuff that he did for you? I said, yes, but as a human being, I'm sorry for him. Look what happened to him and stuff. So that's where more and more of who I am spiritually was coming out, that I really was not there to hurt anybody, and I had a heart. I was sorry for all the stuff that he had been through and stuff, and he had lost and whatever. I was just saying that. So more or less my spiritual person was more or less coming out to be who I am. So I don't know, that's then the organization continued to grow and more awards and more recognition for what we're doing with children. And the curriculum for the school system, we had developed and made all kinds of curriculum for different age groups, and we did teacher training, we did all the stuff like that. So then, but you should know about the National Wellness, because when I was working earlier, and I found out in the late 80s, I think it was, I found this brochure that came to us about the National Wellness Conference, and it was so exciting to see all the different presenters and to see wellness there and stuff. So we always had a holistic component. I think that's why we got funded, because no one else was doing holistic kinds of things, teaching kids breathing or teaching kids, yoga or teaching kids, Tai Chi. Our program was always unique, and some people didn't even want to fund us because they thought we were just a massage agency, but we was like, no, we had done a whole lot of things, and we had, a lot of awards. Because we were that unique and we were holistic, we grabbed the community, the parents, children, and the students. We had all those components made us very unique, and they made us really more, acceptable for people to know that we had a holistic, because people were not coming in to do holistic kinds of programs that we were doing with children and stuff. So with that, took me to wellness. Then I met Sandy Queen, and I wrote wellness to say, can I come? Because I didn't have the money at all. I said, can I wash dishes and stuff? And then they wrote back and said, you can present if you're doing wellness programs. I was like, great. So that's how I got into the wellness place. I made so many great friends there. That's why I met Roger Youngke. That's why I met Chuni Lynn, Master Lynn, And that's been the best experience of my whole life, meeting Chuni and then training with him, becoming a master Qigong and healer with him. And I'm still, that has made my world. So I've been following Chuni for the last 20 years and trying to just up my game spiritually in terms of trying to be the best me. He's teaching so much good stuff. So how do you know when you find your master teacher? Because like I was telling somebody, something aligns with your heart that is just puts you in the right place where you are and you just know. So I'm so glad that I was able to go to the wellness to meet Chuni and to basically synchronate my whole life in teaching more Spring Forest Qigong and cultivating that with my life of trying to be the best person I could be.
Wow.
Okay.
And I think we probably met in the early 90s. I'm trying to remember. You've been in my consciousness with almost every meeting I can recall in the last couple of decades. You're there, and you always. Yeah, I'll be in a quiet room, and suddenly there's this voice, and you appear like magic. And
That's great.
one of the
Great.
high points of the conferences for me.
Yes,
So,
that's been
wow,
good.
this has been quite a tour of your life. And now, how many kids did you wind up having? Your daughter?
I have three kids. That's my oldest granddaughter. That's in, and I have 9 grandchildren, and I have 2 through marriage, 2 extra kids, grandchildren through marriage. But my daughter's in California. She's in Oakland, and she's getting married tomorrow and stuff. We have a Zoom wedding, and I have a son here who has 5 kids. And he's here in Clayton County. His life goes up and down with his marriage, so he's spending some time here this week. I'm not sure how long. That's her father. And then I have my youngest son. He has 3. He's the one who have 2 children through marriage and stuff, and he lives in Atlanta too. He's the one that's the rebel now, and he's out there speaking with the protesting, and he's doing a big reformation rally next week. He's like, I saw him. I saw him one of the panel discussions. He's been interviewed on the radio stations and some of the TV stations. And my friend said, he looks like Jim, but he sounds like you. And he's doing all his research and stuff and whatnot. So I'm just really thankful. I just want everybody to be safe. And he has a whole different view. Mine is more, inclusive and community for everybody. And his is like, we got to separate now. We got to get what we want and go someplace and develop our own nation and stuff. So this is the young consciousness and stuff. So it's really good to see him being active and doing his research. He wants whatever context I had. He wants any kind of books. He's here like looking through our books to see what we've read before. So it's very good. It's and they said somebody said this is a quiet revolutionary we're having. We're having a revolution now and stuff. It's just not as outspoken or out as violent. I mean, it has been violent too, but it's a different kind of revolution that we're having now. But this is definitely revolutionary times and stuff. There's so many different things that are happening within, and good things and just new things. Every day you wake up to new happenings in the news and things. So it's a great time, and I really feel blessed to be here. I have a prayer group. I have a Qigong group. I have a different groups. And you had sent something about your tribe, and Gloria and I looked at it, and we said we have several tribes that we are closely connected with, and that we are feeding and doing meditations. And my group, we met this weekend outside for the first time in 3 months, our Qigong group. We had people come from all over still, and I'm connected to Chuni's group as well. So life is good. And
just for our viewers, historically, they may not realize this is in the 4th month of the COVID-19 lockdown, coming out of that, and the Black Lives Matter triggered about a month ago with lots of actions all over the U.S. And just get a quick take from you on what are your thoughts of what's been going on the last month. You've alluded to it with your son, but what's your personal
Great.
take on it?
So, yeah. So I was just asked that the other day too. My take, I draw from the people who I really look up to, and that's my husband. Um, and Chuni's saying, and also Deepak Chopra is saying, Chuni's saying that the world is full of too much toxin. And as a result, there's too much negative vibrations coming from all over political, personal relationships, and also what's happening with the whole universe as to how we're treating the earth that we live on. And his thing is that, so it has to get rid of this. So it's having this transitional time, has to get rid of this. Deepak Chopra, he was on last week with Black Life Matters. I don't know if you've seen that. That was a heavyweight. He talked about generational stress in all of it. And then he did a meditation. And he talks too about the toxins. He said, look what are we doing to the land that we need and that we need for food? And what are we putting in the land? What are we doing to the trees that we need for our breath? What are we doing with them as we're tearing them down? What are we doing to our water, which is essential for our life? He said, what are we doing? He said, so the earth has to regurgitate all this stuff and say this has to change. And so this is the time of the change that's happening, and it's rough right here. And as a result, we all have to pray. And there's more meditation going on today, world meditation, global meditation than ever before, to balance this energy out. And there's a belief through Patricia Cataroblis and stuff, and others believe the more we put more positive energy out here, we can counter this negative energy and change the world that we live in. But we're not there yet. And Chuni is saying too, within the next 2 weeks, there's some shift in the energy and the whole atmosphere, the astrology sphere, that there's certain days, he said, that the energy is going to be so unsettling. He's asking us to do more prayer, more chanting, more meditation, and be cautious because of this energy is really not stable. So he's earmarked some days and stuff, and I'll be glad to send you, because I've made up an email not an email, and made a text and stuff. I'm not sure if we're going to do an email, whatever, but to tell people about these days, whatever you're doing, he said, before you do it, do some more prayer work, see more yellow light for protection, more green light for balancing the energy and healing before you do an activity. If you're driving, if you're flying, if you're swimming, you're doing any kind of activity, he said, just be more conscious of it. He always says if you're flying, take some beautiful incense with you and whatnot. So he's putting that out. And so, we're being more cautious. And have you ever met, because when I was saying other people who are doing, have you ever met Master Lin at the wellness place, at the wellness conference? Master Chuni Lin, have you ever met him?
No, I don't think I have. I don't
Okay.
think he was there the years I was there.
Yeah, he's been
I've
there.
heard about him from you, but that's about all. Yeah.
Yeah. So Craig, some kind of way, Craig Washington got him to come. I don't know, but Craig has not been back either. But that's how he got there from Craig. But when I met him, it was astonishing and stuff. So if you want somebody who has a view on wellness and what he's doing, because he's doing more healing work as well as just the foundation. He says we're residents of this planet. That's what we need to know. We're residents of Earth, and how are we taking care of our planet? And that's our own responsibility. But his whole thing is he wants a healer. His teaching is about a healer in every family and a world without pain. And that our unconditional love that we get from our heart is the greatest healing force in the universe. And that backs into so many people's things about what we're here to do, is really to love one another more or less, and to get along with one another, and to be more kind and more forgiving. Those are his cornerstones too. So you definitely would agree with them and want to live by them and see more of that. But he is a connoisseur. He is the utmost to me of anybody who you're teaching, who you're following, because they have to live these principles. You have to be it. You just can't talk it. And he is one that is basically one who lives his principles and is his principles. So you're you do yourself a service to get to know him and interview him.
Well, this is great words to conclude with. Thank you. It's
You're welcome.
we've really gotten a good sense of who you are and why and
Oh,
what you've
good.
done. So I'm going to end the recording and thank you so much for your time and energy and all you've offered the world and will continue to offer. So,
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to share and to be heard.
okay, great.
Mm,
Bye.
appreciate